Hello and welcome to this video. And if you remember, some time ago I did a video about how I felt in the first trimester of pregnancy, and the intention was to do one for the second and then one for the third, but as I am now, as of filming, full term, and as you're watching, who knows whether I've had a baby or not by that point, I figured I'd just put them both together because, quite frankly, I've left it a bit late to be talking about second trimester because I don't remember it all that clearly anymore. And a lot of the stuff in second and third are sort of together anyway. So I thought I'd just run through some of the stuff that surprised me, some of the stuff that I was expecting, all of that kind of thing. And as always, I haven't really prepared. I do have a list of stuff on my phone, but how I'm doing it, not quite sure. So I'm gonna wing it and hopefully this is interesting for you. All right, let's start at the things that are specific for second trimester. So that is the 20-week scan, also known as the anatomy scan, I believe, and where you potentially can find out the gender of your child. So we decided that we were going to find out the gender of our baby. I can see why people wait. I think it would be fun, but I mean, it's going to be a surprise whether you find out at 20 weeks or when they're born. So that wasn't the sort of bit that was stopping us from finding out. In Pete's head, he felt that knowing the gender of our baby will help him prepare for when as we know now, will help him prepare for when she arrives and that kind of stuff. So leading up to that scan, I've got to say I was pretty anxious. I have been for both scans. I've been quite fortunate at the time of filming that I haven't had any additional scans, although part of me would have liked one because I would have liked to have seen her again. But obviously those scans are because something isn't quite right. So by not having one, it's more comforting, if that makes sense. But we obviously were eagerly awaiting that scan. You go a long time in your first part of pregnancy between midwife and scans, so it can feel a bit, you come out of one and you go, okay, everything's fine and you're all good, and then that anxiety just ramps up again as you get to the next thing. In third trimester, your appointments are a lot closer together, so that sort of peak and trough aspect, at least that I felt, isn't really there for third trimester because you see them every 2-3 weeks, so it isn't quite so bad. But yeah, waiting for that 20-week scan, hoping, praying that everything is still okay, and obviously the whole point of that scan is to make sure that everything is developing properly and well, and they use it to flag up if anything unusual is happening. With all of our appointments, we were in and out pretty quick. If you've seen one of my recent vlogs, you will know that the midwife that I saw at that point said that I had one of the lowest risk pregnancies she'd ever seen. So maybe that's why we have such quick appointments, because it's all just going textbook at the moment. Touch wood, that carries on into birth and, you know, raising her. So obviously having that scan is a relief, at least for us, because everything was going well. And we obviously found out that we were having a baby girl. Although saying that, in the back of my head there is still that, you know, it could be a boy, because our sonographer essentially said that yes, she thinks it's a girl, but she can't be 100% sure, particularly with girls, because you don't know if the little boy is hiding something. So we're planning for a girl, we have been planning for a girl, we've got a girl's name, we've been calling her baby girl and stuff like that throughout, but there is a very, very small chance that she might not be. But I can't see that happening, really, truly, but that will throw us out a bit if she comes out and is actually a he. So there we go. So yeah, so that is the last scan I've had. That was at 20 weeks. Since then I've just been with my community midwife up at the doctor's surgery. They measure my bump, so from wherever to wherever and plot it on that graph thing, we're pretty much on that 50th percentile line. We haven't really deviated from that. So yeah, everything in that respect is going all right. The most anxiety I felt is leading up to the 12-week and 20-week scans, basically. And also at the first trimester was kind of just anxiety ridden anyway. And I've definitely had less and less of that as we've gone on and as things have progressed nicely. One of the other things that is very, I guess, specific to second trimester compared to both and symptoms of both is the jabs. So I had both the whooping cough and the flu jab at the same time. So people, the flu jab is the same jab that everybody is given, so it depends on the year, I guess, about the potency of that one. I saw online a lot of people saying it was bad this year, but I think because I had it with whooping cough, the flu jab was like nothing, so they put one in each arm. The flu jab arm, perfectly fine. The whooping cough, however, not so much. That is a painful jab, I'm afraid to say. Again, it might just be a me thing, it might be because I had both. Don't take it as read, but when I was speaking to the nurse about it and she's like, right, I'm going to put one in each arm, which arm do you want each one in? I was like, which one's going to hurt more? And she said whooping cough because it's a combined jab with things like tetanus. And tetanus, apparently, I found out, is the thing that causes pain. So that went in my, non-dominant arm, my left arm. And yes, it was sore and sore for quite some time, but it needs doing. I wouldn't have not done it because obviously it will help my baby once she's born. And then she will have to have her own booster at some point, which I'm not looking forward to doing that, but again, we will. So that jab was sore. I think I probably could have got a COVID jab, but I never did and no one ever really pushed it. But the whooping cough is one that they highly recommend for pregnant ladies, and the flu jab is free if you're pregnant anyway. So I just took them up on it, basically. Come your second trimester and third trimester, one of the big things is the baby starts to move. You can start to feel it. That's one of the things leading up to my 20-week scan that I was a bit worried about because I didn't think I'd felt her move, and pretty much as soon as we had that scan, maybe like a day or two later, I was like, oh, I think that's her moving. But certainly before 20 weeks I didn't realise, or I didn't know if she was moving or not. And it is sort of more of like a fluttery kind of feeling. It's a bit weird to explain. I found it was a bit like being on a roller coaster and your stomach sort of drops a bit, but not in a adrenaline kind of bad way. And certainly as she's grown, those movements have become a lot more and a lot harder, shall we say. So as I said, I'm currently 37 weeks, so I'm full term. My baby is sitting sort of around here, I assume, because I get kicked in the rib a lot, and that again is not like painful, but it takes you by surprise because you don't expect something to whack you in the rib quite so often as it does. And you can watch your belly do some very fun movements and things like that, certainly in the third trimester, which I do quite like watching. And it's also quite fun because Jeff is obviously quite attached to me. Jeff is my dog, if you don't know. So he tends to have his nose on my belly, and then obviously she starts moving and his nose moves and he's like, ooh. So she likes to kick him as well. However, when Pete puts his hand on my stomach, she tends to go quiet, so I think she's just trying to psych out her dad. The other thing on movement is that they always say that your baby falls into a pattern, and to get to know the pattern of your baby's movement and things like that, and I've found that very difficult. I've come to a sort of understanding with her now, but it's taken a long time for me to sort of vaguely get what her pattern is, and it does depend on what I'm doing in a day. Like if when I was working, it's very different from the pattern that I've got now that I'm not working, things like that. And that can cause a lot of doubt, and is everything okay, and should I be worried about this? Oh no, there she goes. So there's a lot of times where I'm like, oh, she seems a bit quiet, and then she'll move and I'll be like, cool, we're all right. Obviously, again, in the vlog that I mentioned before about the midwife saying that, that's because we went for monitoring, because I had an evening where she didn't really move, and for me the most active point of the day is when I'm like just getting into bed and getting comfy and getting relaxed. That's when she goes off on one normally. So that occasion nothing really happened, so we did go in to triage and for some monitoring, and within like 30 seconds she, in the midwife's term, was having a party. So that whole movement thing is a bit confusing, and I know they mean well when it's like, it's your baby, you're going to know, but there isn't really any like guidance on it, if that makes sense. And I know they can't tell me, yes, your baby's moving how it should be, because they don't know my baby. It's not in them, it's in me. But there have been a lot of times where I've gone, what am I doing now? No, I think that's okay, I think we're all right. Except for obviously the one occasion where we did go in. I have come to realise that my child has at least one day a week where she is on the quiet side. That is part of her routine. I have at least one day a week. It's never the same day a week, which is also why it's a bit like, where she moves, but it's nowhere near as much or with the ferocity as it is in other occasions. So learning that relatively early on actually saved us quite a lot of stress, which is why when we did go in, it's because we'd had 2 days in a row of her quiet day, so to speak, which was unusual because, as I said, normally it's 1 day a week. But as I said, this is all just my child. Your child could be something entirely different. But yeah, it is a tricky one to work out. A link to that is obviously the growing bump that you get with pregnancy. For a long time I was like, oh, I don't really have one, and then all of a sudden it sort of popped, that's what they say, and then it's just sort of been there. I have days where I feel a lot bigger than others, and certainly now that I'm near the end, it's definitely a weight. It does make things more difficult. I get out of breath very quickly. Simple tasks, I then have to sit down for a little while afterwards. Changing the sheets is difficult. Tell you what is the hardest thing, is like taking your trousers off or something when you go to bed. That wears me out loads, and I don't know why, but that is the bit that I've been finding most difficult in a day, is to actually maneuver myself around the belly. Bending is something that went out the window around the sort of 30-week mark, late 20s, 30 week. There are certain movements that I just can't do as well anymore. So Pete's been very helpful when I'm like, I can't bend to do that. Like, I dropped something the other day, it went between my bed and my chest of drawers. I was like, there is no way I'm going to be able to manoeuvre myself to pick that up, so he had to do it for me. And things like that. So it does, what's the word I was going to say impede, but it's not a bad thing, because obviously I'm growing a human and I'm looking forward to meeting her, and it's my child. But it's definitely a weight that's there, and it does cause its own difficulties, shall we say. So like, I've found in the last week that my hips are a lot sorer. I'm getting aches in my hips, particularly when I'm sleeping. They recommend that you sleep on your side, so that sort of limits how you can be, and I'm finding it a little bit difficult on the hips at the moment. Although, again, I think I've been quite lucky in that my sleep hadn't really been affected until the last week or so. Like, obviously I've had to wake up for a wee and things because there's a pressure on your bladder, but again, that's only been once, at most twice a night. But now I'm getting a nice stretch of sleep, but then waking up sore, so it's harder to then continue with the sleep. I do have cushions and things like that as well that I'm using, and they are helping, but that's sort of a new development within the last couple of weeks, which again is just related to the fact that got a baby in my belly. One of the things I don't think I've heard people talk about before is the fact that I essentially, for the past 5 months, 6 months, have just had the sniffles. So you may notice that I sound a little bit bunged up. I sniff occasionally. I do try and cut them out of the video, but I do sniff occasionally. And that's because one of the things with pregnancy that I have found is that my nose just feels kind of blocked for most of the time. It's not a cold. It's not anything that like causes sinus pain or anything. It's just a stuffiness in my nose and a cough occasionally. And I've had that for pretty much 13 to 15 weeks. It started in second trimester after the scans, after the 20 weeks, probably around the time that she started moving more, and it just hasn't gone. Again, when I'm in bed, when I'm laying down, that's when it's at its most. I'm definitely snoring more because I can't breathe through my nose, and I am now heavier, so poor Pete now has to cope with that. But yeah, I hadn't ever heard of anyone mentioning being slightly sniffly for the majority of their pregnancy, but I've definitely had that one. It's not even that I can blow my nose and it would clear it up, because it's not that kind of thing. It's just where things have, is it the capillaries have expanded or whatever the thing is? I did look it up the other day and it does have a name and it is a common pregnancy symptom, but I can't remember what it is. But that's what I've had for a long time. The other symptom that I've had sort of more predominantly, again through second and third trimester, is heartburn. Well, what I assume is heartburn. Having never had heartburn before, I can only assume that what I feel is that, but it's essentially a burning in the sort of top part of my chest, sort of between my throat and my, where like my bra starts, I guess. So I don't know whether that's heartburn or indigestion, but they're pretty much linked. Again, it's common in pregnancy to have it. I've never actually taken anything for it. It is a bit uncomfortable and it doesn't feel nice, and sometimes it prevents me from sleeping because it's there and it's sort of like, oh right, how am I going to deal with this? But I've never actually taken anything for it, so it can't be that bad. But then I am stubborn and I don't take a lot of things for anything, so maybe that's part of the issue, my issue. And obviously heartburn is common because everything's been pushed up in sort of organ-wise to make room for the baby, which means that the stomach acid and your esophagus are a lot closer together, so it's easier for that kind of burn. A lot of women also get like acid reflux and stuff, which I'm glad I have only had a couple of times, but that sort of burning sensation has been there. It's also, there is a link to heartburn and having a child that's born with a lot of hair. So I'm intrigued to know whether she's going to come out with hair, because again, I don't know whether my heartburn is mild or not. So yeah, that intrigues me. And apparently it's because there's a same chemical or something that, I don't know, I did again read something about that, but I can't quite remember everything. It could be a load of rubbish and she'll be bald as a coot, but I'm sort of expecting there to be a bit of hair because of the heartburn. From the first trimester, if you've seen that video, obviously I mentioned gas. That just has carried on for the whole thing. Certainly if I've laid down for quite a long time, then it builds up. I won't go into too much detail on it, but it's there, it's still a thing. I just roll with it. And the other thing that has come back is the tiredness. So if you saw that first trimester video, you'll know I said that that was like my main symptom, I guess, was just I was knackered. I managed to have a nice stint in the second trimester where it wasn't so bad, I didn't need a nap, and then sort of the tail end of that into third trimester I just have felt more tired. Not at all to the extent of first trimester. I do have a nap, but it's not a daily thing or a multiple daily thing, and I think that tiredness is just more down to the growing baby rather than anything hormonal or anything like that that first trimester was. So yeah, I mean, all in all, I feel like I have been incredibly lucky with this pregnancy. Certainly talking to other women and having heard other stories and stuff, I do feel a little bit guilty is the wrong word because each woman's journey is their journey, but I do feel like I've cruised through this a little easily, which the catastrophizing part of my brain makes me go, oh, I'm gonna have a horrendous birth then. But I'm trying to stay on the positive side in that I'm just gonna carry on this easiness through to birth and we're gonna have a lovely time. So yeah, I mean, I might not be the best person to talk to about pregnancy because, as I said, things have gone pretty textbook and I have not found anything too extreme to cope with or anything like that. And I feel for, sorry, she's kicking me in the rib. I feel for women that have a horrendous time in pregnancy because I can see how and why it can happen. I've just been lucky, I guess, or at least this time I have been lucky and my body has taken to this really well. So here's hoping that the next stage is the same. If you do have any questions or I've missed anything out or anything like that, and you'd like to see what I thought about it during second and third trimester, do drop it in the comments below. And yeah, the videos, I'll probably start mentioning this in other ones, but I'll mention it here because it's specifically baby related. Obviously I don't know when she's coming, and I don't know how long after she's here that I will be uploading things like that, so you are going to just have to bear with me this year as I figure out what I'm doing, but I will try and remember, because I think I have access now to the community tab, I'll try and remember to put something in there when she is born so that you know what's going on and why there might not be any videos if that's something that you are, you know, keen on. Yeah, so I'm going to start waffling on now and let you get on with the rest of your day. So if you have enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already and you're interested in how I take to motherhood, I'll probably do a similar video like this about my birth if I ever find time to film it and things. So if you're interested in things like that, then do click the subscribe button and I will see you in the next one. Bye.